Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Dive. Ready to tackle those big to-dos you've been putting off?
We are going to equip you with a powerful tool.
That's right.
Dopamine Detox.
And to help us with that, we're going to be diving into Thibaut Meurisse's book.
Dopamine Detox. A short guide to eliminate distractions and train your brain to do hard things.
Exactly. Think of this deep dive as your guide to reclaiming your focus in a world that's...
Well, it's only vying for your attention.
Totally. Now, it's not just about like those little bursts of pleasure. You know?
Right.
It's about understanding how dopamine...
The molecule of more.
Yeah, the molecule of more, as Meurisse puts it, drives our actions and how we can, take back control.
Yeah. And you see, dopamine is all about that anticipation. It's that rush you get when you think you're about to get a reward.
Okay, so like when that notification pops up on your phone, you get a surge of dopamine even before you know what it is.
Right. You're anticipating something interesting or enjoyable. And the more we experience these dopamine spikes, the more our brains crave them. But the problem is that our modern environment is like this...
It's like a dopamine minefield.
Minefield, yes.
Right. We're like constantly being bombarded with things that are designed to trigger those dopamine hits.
Yes.
Social media notifications, news updates, emails, like everything.
And it's not just happening randomly. Tech companies and marketers have become like masters at exploiting our dopamine system. They're using sophisticated algorithms and persuasive design to keep us hooked.
Yeah, it's kind of unsettling when you really think about it. Like, it's almost as if they're using our own biology against us.
Yeah, definitely. Think about the food industry. We are naturally drawn to foods that are sugary and fatty because they trigger dopamine release.
Of course.
Food companies know this, and they engineer their products to maximize that effect.
So it's not just like a lack of willpower. It's that we're up against these forces that are intentionally, making us crave these things.
Yeah, exactly. And this constant bombardment of stimuli, whether it's tech or food, has some...
consequences.
Yeah, pretty serious consequences.
Yeah.
It can impair our long-term thinking and make it so hard to focus on tasks that require sustained effort.
Because we're so used to those instant gratification dopamine hits. Like anything that requires delayed gratification just feels super dull in comparison. Like choosing to study for an exam versus just watching another episode of your favorite show.
Exactly. Our brains become wired for instant gratification, and we struggle to engage with activities that don't offer that immediate dopamine rush. Even Steve Jobs, a pioneer of the tech world, recognized the potential dangers of this overstimulation and restricted his own children's technology use.
Really? Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Because he's, Mr. Technology.
Right.
Yeah.
It really makes you think.
Like we've almost lost the ability to just appreciate the simple things, right? Those things that don't necessarily give us this huge dopamine rush, but actually are, better for us long term.
Yeah, that's a good point. And it leads us to the concept of a dopamine detox. It's a way to kind of reset our sensitivity to dopamine and regain control over our attention.
So it's not like we're getting rid of dopamine altogether, but it's more about like recalibrating our system, right? So we're not constantly chasing those dopamine highs and lows.
Exactly, yeah. It's about finding a healthier balance. So Meurisse, he describes several types of dopamine detoxes, ranging from a full 48-hour detox where you're eliminating like almost all external stimuli to a partial detox where you just focus on reducing your biggest distractions.
Okay. A full 48-hour detox sounds intense.
It is.
What would that look like?
Well, it would involve abstaining from things like technology, social media, even highly palatable food and music. You'd spend your time engaging in activities that bring you back to the present moment, without relying on all that external stimulation.
So things like meditation, journaling, spending time in nature, reading a book.
Yes, exactly.
Basically anything that helps you connect with yourself without all that outside noise.
Exactly. It's a chance to disconnect from that dopamine roller coaster and allow your system to kind of reset. Now, if a 48-hour detox feels like too much, you could start with a 24-hour detox or even a partial detox where you just target your biggest distraction.
Okay, so it's like choosing the right level of challenge for you.
Exactly.
Like starting with the beginner slope before you hit the black diamond.
Right. I like that. Yeah, it's about finding what works for you and then gradually kind of pushing yourself outside of that comfort zone.
Awesome. So let's say you've decided to do a dopamine detox. What are some of the practical steps? How do you make sure it's successful?
Well, Meurisse outlines this 3-step method in his book.
Okay.
First, identify your biggest distractions. He suggests making like a cans and can'ts list.
So under can'ts, we'd list things like mindlessly scrolling on social media, checking email every 5 minutes, binge watching TV, constantly snacking on junk food, that kind of thing.
Exactly. And then under cans, you list those activities that are aligned with your goals and values and don't trigger that dopamine roller coaster.
So things like, working on that creative project you've been putting off, having a meaningful conversation with a loved one, going for a walk in nature, reading a book.
Yeah, exactly. And then the next step is to add friction.
Friction, what do you mean by that?
Well, it's basically making those unwanted behaviors harder to do.
Okay.
And the desirable behaviors easier. For example, if your phone is a major distraction, you could turn off notifications or even put it in a drawer in another room.
Oh, so out of sight, out of mind. Basically, you're making it harder to engage in those distracting behaviors, right?
Exactly. If you have to physically get up and walk to another room to check your phone,
Yeah.
you're less likely to do it mindlessly. You're making a more conscious choice.
I remember Meurisse actually talked about putting his internet modem in storage.
Oh, wow.
To make it really difficult to access the internet.
Yeah.
Commitment.
That is, but it illustrates the principle perfectly. The harder it is to do that unwanted behavior,
Right.
the less likely you are to actually do it. And then the flip side, the easier it is to engage in that desired behavior,
Right.
the more likely you are to do that.
Okay. So you're kind of setting yourself up for success.
Exactly.
By like optimizing your environment.
Yes.
I like that.
Yeah.
So optimizing, what's the third step in this process?
Third step is to start your detox first thing in the morning.
Okay.
It sets a positive tone for the day and helps you avoid getting caught in that dopamine loop early on.
Yeah. I can see how that's super important because
Yeah.
once you get that first dopamine surge,
Yeah.
it's harder to resist the temptation.
Exactly. Yeah. So instead of reaching for your phone first thing in the morning, try starting your day with something more calming, like meditation, journaling, stretching.
Okay. So you're basically priming your brain for focus
Yes.
rather than being reactive and distracted.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. It's like choosing the scenic route rather than the highway.
Yeah.
Might take a little longer,
Mm-hmm.
but the journey is much more enjoyable.
So we've talked about the steps of doing a dopamine detox.
Right.
But how do we avoid falling back into those old habits once the detox is over?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's where self-awareness is so important. It's about recognizing those early warning signs of a relapse.
Oh.
Like that urge to check your phone or that craving for a sugary snack.
Right. And it's okay if we slip up.
Yeah.
Right. It's not about being perfect. It's about noticing those moments and then getting back on track.
Exactly. Meurisse really emphasizes that we're constantly battling against this world that is designed to distract us.
Yeah.
Our attention is like a valuable commodity, and there are tons of forces that are trying to grab it.
I know. It sometimes feels like an uphill battle.
Yeah.
But it's helpful to know what we're up against. Right?
Oh, absolutely. And one strategy that Meurisse suggests is to create like a contingency plan for those moments when temptation hits.
So if you know that you tend to reach for your phone when you're stressed, your plan might be to, I don't know, go for a walk, listen to some calming music, do some deep breathing.
Exactly. It's about having that toolbox of strategies to deal with those moments.
Meurisse also talks about cultivating these, what he calls here and now neurotransmitters.
Oh, yes.
Like endorphins, oxytocin, serotonin.
They're like the antidotes to all that dopamine overload. They
Right.
promote feelings of calmness, connection, well-being.
So it's not just about reducing the bad stuff,
Right.
but adding in those good things too.
Exactly. And there's so many simple activities we can do to boost these neurotransmitters.
Yeah, like spending time in nature, exercising, listening to uplifting music, connecting with people you care about.
Yes, and they nourish our minds and bodies in a way that dopamine just, can't.
One thing that I've actually found helpful is to schedule time for nothing. No screens, no tasks, just being present.
That's a wonderful practice. It's like giving your brain permission to just relax and recharge without feeling pressure to do or to consume.
Yeah, it's like a mini vacation for your mind.
Yeah.
So it seems like a dopamine detox is less about deprivation and more about just getting control, like taking back control of your attention, your time, your life.
Absolutely. It's about making conscious choices about how you want to spend your energy rather than just being controlled by your dopamine system.
And you don't have to do everything at once, right? Like small changes can make a big difference.
Start by figuring out what your biggest distraction is, and then try one small thing to reduce it. You might be really surprised by the impact it has on everything, your focus, your mood, just your overall well-being.
Awesome. Well, thanks for diving into the world of dopamine detox with us. Hopefully you've got some new insights, some practical tools to help you regain control, achieve your goals.
And just remember, you get to choose how you interact with the world.
Yes, you do.
Choose wisely.
That's it for today's deep dive. We'll see you next time for another exploration of fascinating topics.